They gave the single mother just a plot full of rocks as a joke, but what she found there. Sarah Mitchell never imagined that her Aunt Eleanor's last act of cruelty could turn into the greatest blessing of her life. The lawyer's letter had arrived on a rainy Monday, when she no longer knew how she would pay the overdue rent for the small apartment where she lived with her 2 children. That's when she opened the yellowed envelope and read that she had inherited a plot of land in rural Colorado, a plot that, according to the guffaws of Aunt Eleanor's neighbors, was known in town as the crazy old lady's useless rock graveyard. Sarah held the paper with trembling hands. She knew well the contempt her aunt had always shown her since she got pregnant at 19. Eleanor never missed an opportunity to remind Sarah that she had ruined her life by getting pregnant with Ethan, now 8 years old, and then repeating the mistake with Lily, who was 6. "Mom, why are you crying?" asked Lily, approaching with her big blue eyes full of concern. "I'm not crying, sweetheart. It's just that we got something from Aunt Eleanor." Ethan came running from the living room, his green cap always crooked on his head. "She gave us something, but she didn't like us." Sarah took a deep breath. How to explain to 2 children that even in her departure, Aunt Eleanor had found a way to humiliate her? The lawyer had been clear on the phone. It was a rocky, unproductive plot, with no commercial value whatsoever. One last cruel joke from the woman who had always considered her a family disgrace. "It's a piece of land, kids. A place with lots of rocks where maybe we can spend our vacation." In truth, Sarah knew they had no choice. The money had run out weeks ago. She had been surviving on sporadic cleaning jobs and the occasional help of a kind neighbor, Mrs. Patricia, who sometimes watched the children when she managed to pick up some odd jobs. Unemployment had become a cruel reality since the cleaning company she worked for closed its doors. At 28, Sarah found herself cornered, with no prospects and 2 children depending on her. "Can we have an adventure, Mom?" Lily clapped her hands, always optimistic, despite the hardships she witnessed daily. "Of course, Princess. It'll be like camping." Ethan made a face. "But I wanted to stay here for vacation. Nathan said his dad is taking him to the mall." Sarah felt her heart tighten. Her children deserved so much more than she could offer. The mall was an impossible luxury, just like the movies, new toys, or even brand-name clothes that their schoolmates wore. "You'll like it, Ethan. There will be lots of rocks to climb, fresh air, and what if we don't like it?" Sarah took a deep breath. That was precisely the question. If they didn't like it, they had nowhere to return to. The apartment landlord had already made it clear he wouldn't tolerate any more late rent payments. The next morning, she called her Aunt Eleanor's lawyer for more information about the land. Dr. Harrison got straight to the point, almost rude. "Look, Sarah, I'll be honest with you. This land is practically useless. Your aunt must have had some mental problem to leave this to anyone. It's pure rock. You can't even plant anything. The neighbors there have always made jokes about that place. Is there any structure on it?" "Structure? My dear, you can barely walk properly there. It's rocks on all sides. Some curious folks tried to explore it in the past, but they gave up. It's a worthless piece of land." Sarah hung up the phone with a heavy heart. Aunt Eleanor had truly found the perfect way to humiliate her one last time, to give her failure of a niece exactly what nobody wanted. But she had no choice. That same afternoon she began gathering the few belongings they had. Old clothes, some broken toys, dented pots, and the small radio that still worked. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Mrs. Patricia appeared at the door when Sarah was closing the last boxes. "Girl, are you sure about this? Going to a place you don't know with these small children?" "I have no choice, Mrs. Patricia. At least the land is ours. There we won't owe rent to anyone. And if you need anything out there in the countryside, far from everything..." Sarah tried to smile but couldn't hide her anguish. "We'll manage. We always have." The neighbor shook her head, worried. She had known Sarah for 3 years and had witnessed all the difficulties the young woman faced. She was a dedicated, hard-working mother, but life always seemed to conspire against her. "Do you at least have a phone number for the town? The lawyer gave me the contact for a gentleman who looks after some properties in the area. He said he can explain how to get to the land." "Actually, Sarah hadn't told the whole truth. Dr. Harrison had mentioned that the land was more than 2 hours from the nearest town, on a dirt road few people knew. It was practically isolated. And school for the children? The holidays started yesterday. We have 2 months to see how things go. Mrs. Patricia sighed. She knew Sarah was desperate, but this seemed like a very risky decision. Look, if you need to come back, you can stay here a few days while you look for another place. Thank you, Mrs. Patricia. You've always been so good to us. That night, Sarah barely slept. She was taking her children to an unknown place, not knowing if they would have the bare minimum to survive. But the alternative was worse, staying in the city homeless, without money, watching the children go hungry. Ethan and Lily slept hugging each other, excited about the prospect of the adventure. For them it was still just a game. Sarah hoped it would remain just that. On Thursday morning, they caught the bus to the countryside. The trip lasted 4 hours to the town of St. Brendan's South, a small municipality Sarah had never visited. During the journey, she watched the landscape change. Buildings gave way to simple houses, then to farms, mountains, and lots of green. Lily was glued to the window, enchanted by the cows and horses she saw along the way. "Mom, look at all the animals. Will we have animals too?" "I don't know, sweetie. We'll find out together." Ethan was more reserved, perhaps sensing that this move wasn't just a vacation trip. At 8 years old, he already understood more about the family's financial situation than Sarah would have liked. "Mom, when are we coming back?" Sarah hesitated before answering. She couldn't lie, but she also didn't want to scare him. "Let's see what it's like there first, son. Maybe we'll like it so much we won't even want to come back soon." The bus dropped them off at the St. Brendan South bus terminal, a simple building that looked more like a big house with a few benches. Sarah looked around, searching for some indication of how to get to the land. A man of about 60 approached. "Are you Sarah, Mrs. Eleanor's niece?" "Yes, I am. You are—" Harold Thompson. Dr. Harrison said you'd be arriving today. I looked after some things for your aunt." Sarah observed the man carefully. Harold had a sunburned face, calloused hands, and a simple manner that inspired trust. "What's the land like?" "Dr. Harrison said it's quite complicated." Harold laughed, but it wasn't a mean laugh. "Complicated is a polite way of putting it. Mrs. Eleanor was different. That land of hers is one of a kind. I've never seen anything like it." "One of a kind how?" "It's better for you to see with your own eyes. I have a truck here. I can take you there." On the way, Harold told more about Aunt Eleanor. She had bought the land over 20 years ago, against everyone's opinion in town. Everyone thought she had lost her mind. She paid a good amount for a piece of land nobody wanted. Why didn't anyone want it? You'll understand when you get there. It's a strange place, full of rock formations, stones of all sizes. It looks more like a rock museum than a piece of land. Lily clapped her hands in the back seat. "I like rocks. I collect pretty rocks." Harold smiled through the rearview mirror. "Then you'll like it there, girl. There are rocks galore." Ethan stayed quiet, looking out the window at the approaching mountains. The road had become a dirt trail that shook the truck violently. Did Aunt Eleanor live there on the land? No, she never lived there. She came from time to time, would walk among the stones, talking to herself. The townsfolk thought she was crazy. Talking to herself. Yeah, she said the stones spoke to her, that they held secrets. Weird people stuff, right? Sarah felt a shiver. Was she taking her children to a place where the previous owner talked to stones? What kind of inheritance had she received? After an hour on the dirt road, Harold stopped the truck. "We're here." Sarah got out and looked around. At first glance, it seemed they were in the middle of a stone desert. Rock formations of all sizes spread as far as the eye could see. "My God, I told you it was different," Harold commented, helping the children down. Lily immediately ran toward the rocks, enchanted. Ethan stayed closer to his mother, impressed by the strange landscape. "Is there water here? Electricity?" "There's an artesian well over there behind those bigger rocks. Your aunt had it drilled about 10 years ago. About electricity. There isn't any." Sarah felt her stomach turn. How would they survive without electricity? What if one of the children got hurt out here in the middle of nowhere? Is there somewhere for us to stay? A house? There's a tiny shack your aunt had built. More for storing tools, really. It has just one room. Very simple. Harold guided them through the rocks to a wooden structure that seemed about to collapse. It had two tiny rooms, a bedroom with a small window and a living room that served as a kitchen. It's not much, but there's a gas stove and some pots your aunt left. Sarah entered the shack and sat in the only available chair. The smell of mold was strong, and there were spiderwebs in every corner. The walls had cracks that let in wind and probably rain. "Mom, look!" Lily shouted outside. Sarah quickly went out and saw her daughter pointing at a stone that shone differently from the others. It had a bluish hue that stood out among the greyish rocks. "How pretty! It looks like a jewel." Ethan approached too. "It's just a rock, Lily. It's no big deal." "It's not just a rock. Look how it shines." Sarah observed the small rock Lily was holding. It really did have a different shine, almost as if it had its own light. But it must have just been an optical illusion caused by the sun. "Keep it safe, honey. It might be your first memory from this place." Harold approached to say goodbye. "If you need anything urgent, there's a farm about 5 kilometers from here. Mr. William usually helps those in need. But it's a long way to walk. And to buy food, medicine, in town. But I only come here once a week on Thursdays. If you want a ride to get supplies." Sarah did mental calculations. She had enough money for a few weeks of basic food at most. After that, she didn't know what she'd do. "Thank you, Mr. Harold. Next Thursday, I'd like to go to town." "No problem. See you later, folks." The truck drove away, kicking up a cloud of dust. For the first time, Sarah and her children were completely alone in that strange place. Lily kept exploring the rocks, finding a few more with the same bluish glow. Ethan tried to get into the shack, but the door was stuck. "Mum, can I sleep in a hammock outside? It smells really bad in here." Sarah looked at the sky. It was still daytime, but it would soon be dark. What would it be like to spend their first night in that isolated place? "Let's first clean the shack a little, then we'll decide where to sleep." They spent the rest of the afternoon trying to make the place livable. Sarah swept away the cobwebs and accumulated dirt, while the children organized the special rocks that Lily kept finding. When the sun began to set, Sarah realized she hadn't thought of something crucial. They had no flashlights. The darkness in that place would be absolute. "Kids, let's have dinner and go to bed early tonight. We'll explore more tomorrow," Lily protested. "But I want to find more rocks. There are so many here." "In the morning, sweetie. It's getting dark now." They ate bread with bologna in the shack's single room, lit by a candle Harold had left. The silence around them was total, very different from the urban noises they were used to. Ethan got nervous. "Mum, what's that sound?" Sarah stopped to listen. Indeed, there was a low sound, as if something was moving among the rocks. "It must be the wind, son, or some small animal." "What if it's a big animal?" Sarah tried to hide her own concern. "It won't be, Ethan. Big animals make loud noises. This is a small sound. But during the night, the noises intensified. They seemed to come from different directions, as if something was circling the shack." Lily woke up frightened. "Mom, there's someone outside." "There's no one, my love. It's just the wind through the rocks." "But I heard footsteps." Sarah got up and looked out the window. The darkness was impenetrable. She couldn't see anything at all beyond the shadows of the larger rocks. "Let's go back to sleep. Tomorrow you'll see it was nothing." But she herself couldn't sleep properly. The noises continued through the night, always changing location, always mysterious. When dawn broke, Sarah was the first to leave the shack. She wanted to check if there was any explanation for the sounds from the previous night. Walking among the rocks, she found strange footprints in the dirt. They weren't from any known animal, nor were they human. They looked like circular marks, as if something heavy had pressed into the ground. Lily came running up, excited. "Mom, look what happened to my rocks." Sarah turned and saw something that left her bewildered. The blue rocks Lily had gathered the day before were glowing more intensely. It was as if they had absorbed energy during the night. "How strange." Ethan approached, still sleepy. "They really are different." Yesterday they didn't glow this much. Sarah picked up one of the rocks and examined it closely. The blue glow pulsed faintly, as if it had a life of its own. That was definitely not normal. Kids, let's have breakfast and then explore the land some more. Maybe we'll find other interesting rocks. During the morning, they walked over a large part of the property. The quantity and variety of rocks scattered everywhere was impressive. Some were huge, others small like pebbles, but they all seemed to have been placed there intentionally. "Mum, it looks like someone made a giant rock garden," Ethan observed. "That's true, this arrangement doesn't seem natural." Lily kept collecting the glowing blue rocks, which seemed to be strategically scattered across the land. Whenever she found one, she shouted with joy, "I found another one. This one is even prettier." Around noon, a pickup truck approached, kicking up dust. Sarah tensed up. Who could it be? A man, around 40 years old, got out of the vehicle. He wore expensive clothes and had an air of authority that didn't fit the rural setting. "Are you the new owner?" "I am. Sarah Mitchell. How can I help you?" "Raymond Parker. I have some business in the area. I heard you inherited this land from Mrs. Eleanor." Sarah noticed he was looking at the stones with an interest that seemed excessive for a casual conversation. "That's right. We're still getting to know the property. Can I speak frankly with you? This land is good for nothing. It's pure rock. You can't farm it. You can't build on it properly. You'll spend more money trying to make use of it than it's worth." "And what would your suggestion be?" Raymond smiled, but there was something forced in his expression. "I'll buy it from you. I'll pay a fair price. You take the money and go back to the city, where the children will have a better life." Sarah was immediately suspicious. If the land was no good, why would he be interested in buying it? "How much would you be willing to pay?" $5,000 cash. Lily came running up with more blue stones in her hands. "Mum, look how many I found, and they're shining brighter." Raymond's eyes widened when he saw the stones. Sarah noticed his reaction and her suspicion grew. "They're pretty, aren't they? My daughter loves collecting them." "Yeah." "They're interesting," Raymond replied, clearly trying to disguise his interest. "Well, Mr. Raymond, thank you for the offer, but we just arrived. We're going to stay a while before making any decision." The man insisted for a few more minutes, raising his offer to $7,000. When Sarah continued to refuse, he said goodbye with a forced smile and promised to come back, to talk more. After he left, Sarah felt uneasy. Why would anyone be so interested in land that was supposedly good for nothing? "Mum, that man was weird," Ethan commented. "Why?" "He kept looking at our stones in a strange way, like he wanted to take them." Lily hugged her stones tightly. "He can't take my stones. I found them." "No one is going to take your stones, honey. Don't worry." But Sarah was not at ease. Something strange was going on, and she had a feeling the blue stones were the key to understanding everything. In the afternoon, while the children played, she decided to examine the stones Lily had collected more closely. They were definitely different from any rock she had ever seen. The blue glow didn't seem superficial, but came from inside the stone. She tried to break one with a sledgehammer she found in the shack. When she struck the stone, it didn't break, but emitted a crystalline, almost musical sound. "How strange," Lily appeared upon hearing the noise. "Why are you hitting my stone?" "Sorry, honey. I was just testing something." "They don't like being hurt. I can feel it." Sarah looked at her daughter in surprise. Lily was only 6, but sometimes she said things that seemed to come from a wisdom far beyond her years. "What do you mean you can feel it?" "When I hold them, I feel they're special, like they have something important inside." That night, the mysterious noises returned, but this time Sarah decided to investigate. She took a candle and left the shack, walking carefully among the stones. The sounds seemed to come from a larger rock formation in the center of the property. As she approached, she noticed there was an opening between the rocks like a small cave. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The candlelight revealed something extraordinary. The cave was small, but its walls were covered in blue crystals identical to the ones Lily had been collecting. They shone intensely, creating an almost supernatural natural lighting. Sarah entered slowly, fascinated. It was like being inside a giant geode. The crystals covered not only the walls, but also the ceiling and part of the floor. In the center of the cave, there was something even more surprising, a small water spring that bubbled up among the crystals. The water was crystal clear and seemed to have special properties, as it also emitted a soft glow. My God! What is this place? She dipped her hand in the water. It was warm and had a different feel, almost oily, but not in an unpleasant way. When she returned to the shack, she found the children awake and worried. "Where were you, Mom?" "We got scared," said Ethan. "I discovered something incredible. Tomorrow I'll show you." Lily jumped out of bed. "Does it have to do with my special stones?" "Yes, my love. It has a lot to do with it." The next morning, Sarah took the children to the cave. Their reaction was pure enchantment. "It's a crystal palace," exclaimed Lily. Ethan was more impressed with the organization of the crystals. "It looks like someone did this on purpose. It's too organized to be natural." "That's exactly what I thought," agreed Sarah. They spent hours exploring the cave and collecting more samples of the blue crystals. Lily insisted that each one had a different personality. "This one is more cheerful," she said, holding a crystal that shone more intensely. "And this one is more serious," she continued, showing another that pulsed more slowly. Sarah began to wonder if her daughter had some special sensitivity to those crystals. She seemed to understand something about them that escaped the adults. Around noon, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was a grey-haired gentleman wearing simple clothes who approached walking among the rocks. "Excuse me, is anyone there?" Sarah came out of the shack to greet him. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "My name is Professor William Anderson. I'm a retired geologist. I live on the nearby farm and heard you had arrived." "Ah, you must be Mr. William that Harold mentioned." "Exactly. I came here because I've been curious about this land for years. Your aunt never let anyone properly explore it." Sarah hesitated. She didn't know if she should trust the stranger, but he seemed genuinely interested in geology, not in business like Raymond. "Do you know about stones?" "It's my specialty. I worked 40 years studying rock formations." Lily came running with her blue crystals. "Look, Grandpa, my special stones." Professor William almost dropped his glasses. "Good heavens! Where did you find these?" "My daughter has been finding them scattered around the property." "May I examine one?" Lily hesitated but ended up handing over one of the smaller crystals. The geologist took a magnifying glass from his pocket and examined it carefully. "I can't believe it. This is extraordinary." "What is it?" "They're blue agates, but they're not common agates. These have a purity and a crystalline pattern I've never seen. They're extremely rare." Sarah felt her heart race. "Rare how?" "Mrs. Sarah, these stones could be worth a small fortune, each one of them." Lily hugged her crystals tightly. "I don't want to sell my stones. They're my friends." Professor William smiled gently. "You don't have to sell them, child, but you need to know what you have here." Sarah was trying to process the information. If the stones were truly valuable, that would explain Raymond's interest. "Professor, can you explain it better to me? I'm a little lost." "Of course. May I come back tomorrow with some equipment? I'd like to do a more detailed analysis." "Yes, you may, but how can I know if you're telling the truth? Yesterday a man showed up here wanting to buy the land. Now you say the stones are valuable. I'm confused." The geologist understood the suspicion. "You're right to be wary. Look, I'll leave you my phone number and the farm's address. You can ask anyone in town about me. I've lived here for 15 years. Everyone knows me." That night, Sarah could barely sleep. Her mind buzzed with possibilities. If the stones were truly valuable, perhaps she could give her children a better life. But it also meant other people would try to take it from them. The next day, Professor William returned, carrying a heavy backpack full of equipment. He also brought a woman around 50 years old. "This is my wife, Margaret. She also understands mineralogy." Margaret greeted Sarah warmly. "William didn't sleep all night, excited about your stones. He insisted I come see them too." They spent hours examining the crystals Lily had collected. They used magnifying glasses. small hammers, chemical reagents, and other instruments Sarah didn't even know the names of. "Sarah, I need to tell you something," Professor William began after finishing the tests. "Go ahead. These agates are truly extraordinary, but there's something more. Where exactly did you find them?" Sarah looked at the children. She decided to trust the couple. "Lily, can you show them the special cave?" Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. Can I? Can I show them my crystal palace?" When they reached the cave, the couple's reaction was astonishing. Margaret was speechless, and Professor William leaned against a rock to keep from falling. "In 50 years of career, I've never seen anything like this," he murmured. The cave looked even more beautiful in the daylight. The crystals reflected the sunlight, creating a spectacle of colors and sparkles. "And there's more." Sarah showed the spring of water at the center. Professor William knelt by the spring and collected a water sample in a small vial. "I'll take it for analysis, but I suspect this water also has special properties." "Special how?" "It could be mineral water with a high concentration of rare elements. That would be another treasure besides the crystals." Ethan, who had been quietly observing everything, finally spoke. "Professor, does that mean we're rich?" The geologist laughed. "Well, son, I can't give exact values without deeper analysis. But I can say you have something very, very special here." Margaret approached Sarah. "Dear, I need to warn you about something. If this discovery becomes public, many people will try to take advantage of you. You need to be very careful." "What should I do?" "First, don't tell anyone about the cave. Second, if anyone comes wanting to buy the land, don't accept any offer without consulting experts first. Third, find a trustworthy lawyer." Sarah felt a weight on her shoulders. She had found a treasure, but she had also found new problems. "And you? Can I trust that you won't spread this around?" Professor William put his hand on her shoulder. "Sarah, Margaret and I are going to help you. We have no interest in profiting from this. We just want to see a good family prosper." Lily tugged on Margaret's clothes. "Mrs. Margaret, are the little stones really my friends?" "Of course they are, dear, and they're going to help you and your family have a very good life." When the couple left, promising to return in a few days with the analysis results, Sarah sat among the stones to think. Had Aunt Eleanor really left a valuable inheritance, or had it just been an extraordinary coincidence? That night, while the children slept, she found an old box at the back of the shack. Inside were some letters and yellowed papers. One of the letters caught her attention. It was from Aunt Eleanor herself, addressed to her. "Sarah, if you're reading this letter, it means you finally decided to come to this place. I know you always thought I hated you, but the truth is, I admired you. You had the courage to follow your heart, even when the whole family criticized you. This land is my gift to you and the children. There is more here than meets the eye. The stones hold secrets that can only be discovered by those with a pure heart. Take good care of this place. It will take good care of you. With love." "Yes, I always loved you, Aunt Eleanor," Sarah cried, reading the letter. All those decades of animosity, and in the end Aunt Eleanor really did care about her. But the letter also made it clear that her aunt knew about the land's value. The inheritance wasn't a cruel joke, it was a carefully planned gift. The following Thursday, Harold showed up for the weekly ride into town. "How are you all settling in?" "Better than we expected," Sarah answered, avoiding giving details about the discoveries. "And those stones the girl was collecting? Is she still playing with them?" Sarah noticed that even Harold seemed interested in the stones. Could it be a coincidence? She really likes collecting them. Kids, right? During the trip to town, Harold asked several questions about the land, about where they spent their time if they had explored everything. "Your aunt used to say there were hidden treasures in that place. Have you found anything interesting?" Sarah decided to test him. "What kind of treasures?" "Oh, she talked about special stones, miraculous waters. Old people's talk, right? Imagination." But Sarah sensed Harold wasn't being truthful. There was something in the way he spoke that suggested greater knowledge than he let on. In town, they bought groceries, and Sarah took the opportunity to visit the public library. She wanted to research more about blue agates and the region's geological formations. The librarian, Mrs. Helen, was very helpful. "Blue agates, how interesting." We have some books on regional mineralogy. Do you know if there's any special formation of agates around here? Well, for years there have been stories circulating about a blue cave somewhere in the region, but most people think it's a legend. A legend? They say there's a place where the crystals glow on their own and the water has healing powers. But you know how these country stories are, right? They get passed from mouth to mouth and become more and more fanciful. Sarah grew nervous. If there were legends about a blue cave, maybe other people were looking for the same place she had found. And are many people interested in these stories? Lately, yes. Some outsiders have shown up in town asking about rock formations, land with special stones. Raymond Parker has been very excited too. Hearing Raymond's name, Sarah was alarmed. Raymond Parker. Has he been here recently? Yes, he has. Just yesterday. He was talking with Dr. Harrison about inheritances and land. He seemed very interested in something. Sarah thanked her for the information and left the library with her heart racing. Raymond hadn't given up. He was probably investigating the legal situation of the land, looking for a way to take it from her. On the way back, she asked Harold to stop at a public phone. She called Professor William. "Professor, Sarah here. Do you have the analysis results yet?" "Sarah, I'm glad you called. The results are even better than we expected. Can you come to the farm tomorrow? It's better we talk in person." "Is there a problem?" "Not exactly a problem, but it's better not to talk on the phone." Sarah hung up even more nervous. She had a feeling things were getting complicated quickly. During the ride back to the land, Harold asked more questions. "Raymond Parker came by here a few days ago, right?" "He did. Why?" "He's been making a lot of moves in town, buying land, talking to lawyers. People are talking." "What kind of moves?" "They say he discovered something interesting in the region, some business that could make a lot of money." Sarah pretended disinterest, but inside she was panicking. Raymond clearly knew about the land's value and was making moves to take it from her. When they arrived at the land, Lily ran to show she had found more crystals. "Mom, look, these are shining even brighter." It was true. The crystals seemed to be becoming more luminous each day. "How strange," commented Harold, observing the stones with excessive interest. Sarah decided she could no longer trust him. "Lily, put your special stones away. It's time for dinner." That night, she gathered the children for a serious talk. "Kids, I need to talk to you about something important." "What is it, Mom?" asked Ethan. "Those stones Lily has been collecting could be very valuable, but that could also bring problems." "What kind of problems?" Lily hugged her crystals. "Bad people might try to take the stones from us or try to trick us." "How?" "They could make up lies, say the land isn't ours, or try to scare us into leaving." Ethan became serious. "So, what are we going to do?" "We're going to be very careful. We won't tell anyone about the special cave, and if anyone comes here asking questions, you let me do the talking, okay?" "Yes, Mom," they both replied. "And Lily, we're going to put your stones in a safe place. We only play with them when no one else is around." "Okay, but can I visit them sometimes?" Sarah smiled despite her worry. "Of course you can, sweetheart." The next day they walked to Professor William's farm. It was a well-kept property with a simple but comfortable house. Margaret greeted them at the door. "So glad you came. William is in the makeshift lab he set up in the shed." They found the geologist surrounded by equipment and papers. He was visibly excited. "Sarah, the analyses confirmed everything. These crystals are extraordinary. Can you explain it better? They are blue agates with 98% purity. To give you an idea, common agates have 70% to 80% purity. These are practically perfect. And that means that each crystal could be worth between $5,000 and $15,000, depending on size and formation." Sarah leaned on a chair. Lily had collected over 20 crystals. "And the water?" "The water is even more impressive. It has a very high concentration of rare minerals. It could be marketed as premium therapeutic water. A specialized company would pay a fortune for access to that spring." Ethan did mental math. "You mean we're millionaires?" Professor William laughed. "Potentially, yes, son. but there are some challenges ahead. What kind of challenges? Asked Sarah. First, you'll need environmental licenses for commercial exploitation. Second, you'll need legal protection because a lot of people will try to take this from you. Third, you'll need trustworthy experts so you don't get cheated, Margaret added. And there's something else. William discovered something more. What? Professor William showed some papers. I researched the region's geological history. This land sits on a unique rock formation created by volcanic activity millions of years ago. It's likely there are other caves like the one you found. Other caves? Yes, the entire property might be a blue agate mine. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and terror. The potential wealth was enormous, but so were the dangers. Professor, can I trust you to help me with this? Of course, but you need to understand I'm going to suggest some changes to protect you. What kind of changes? First, you can't stay alone on that land anymore. It's too isolated and you're vulnerable. Second, you need to hire a lawyer specialized in mineral rights. Third, you can't talk about this with anyone else until you have full legal protection. That afternoon, Professor William took them back to the property. But when they arrived, they found an unpleasant surprise. Raymond Parker was walking among the stones, accompanied by two other men Sarah didn't know. "Good afternoon!" Raymond waved as if he owned the place. Sarah was furious. "What are you doing here? This is private property." "Calm down, Sarah. I was just showing some friends of mine the land you're selling to me." "I never said I would sell." "Oh, but you will, because I've discovered some interesting things about the legal status of this property." One of the men with Raymond stepped forward. He was well-dressed and had the air of a lawyer. "Miss Sarah, my name is Dr. Stephen Walsh. I represent the true heirs of this property." "True heirs? What are you talking about?" "Eleanor Davis left significant debts when she passed, debts that weren't declared in the probate. This means the inheritance can be contested." Sarah looked at Professor William, who seemed outraged. "That's a lie," he exclaimed. "Is it now?" Raymond smiled maliciously. "Then why didn't Dr. Harrison mention the debts when he handled the probate?" Sarah felt the ground give way beneath her. Could it be possible there were undeclared debts? "What kind of debts?" Dr. Stephen showed a folder full of papers. "Loans, financing, business debts. All properly documented. If they aren't paid, the land goes to auction." "How much are these debts?" $300,000. Sarah nearly fainted. It was an impossible amount for her to pay. "And what is your proposal?" Raymond answered for Dr. Stephen. "We take on all the debts and still pay you $50,000. It's a generous offer." Professor William intervened. "Sarah, don't sign anything. Demand to see the original debt documents. Ask for time to consult an independent lawyer." "With all due respect, Professor, Dr. Stephen countered, "You don't have the legal knowledge to comment on this." "And why are you in such a hurry?" Raymond tried to sound casual. "Because the debts are accruing interest. The more time passes, the worse it is for Sarah." Lily approached her mother, frightened by the argument. She was still carrying some of the blue crystals she had collected that day. One of the men with Raymond saw the stones, and his eyes widened. "Raymond, look at this." "They're just little stones my daughter collects." Sarah tried to downplay it, but Raymond had already realized what they were. "Interesting. Where did she find these little stones?" "Scattered around the property. There are many." Raymond's interest visibly intensified. "You know, Sarah, perhaps I can increase my offer. Let's say $70,000. Professor William realized what was happening. "Sarah, don't agree to anything now. Ask for at least a week to review all the documentation," Dr. Stephen protested. "A week might be too long. The creditors are pressuring." "Then they'll have to wait," Sarah replied, finding her courage. Raymond didn't like the answer. "Sarah, you don't understand the situation. If you don't accept our offer, you could lose everything and still owe money. I understand perfectly, but I won't make a decision like this without proper study." The three men exchanged glances. It was clear they hadn't expected resistance. "Very well," Raymond said, trying to remain calm. "We'll be back next week, but I hope you've changed your mind by then." After they left, Sarah sat on a rock and broke down in tears. What if it's true? What if these debts really exist? Professor William put a hand on her shoulder. Sarah, even if there are debts, you still have rights. And with the value of the crystals you discovered, it's possible to pay off any debt and still have a lot of money left over. But they know about the crystals now. They saw Lily with the stones. That's true. That complicates things. Margaret, who had been quiet, finally spoke. Sarah, you and the children will stay at our farm tonight. It's not safe for you to stay here alone. I can't impose on you. You're not imposing. We're offering because we want to help. That night at Professor William and Margaret's house, Sarah called Dr. Harrison. Dr. Harrison, I need to know about any possible debts of my Aunt Eleanor that weren't declared in the inventory. Debts? Sarah, I reviewed all of your aunt's financial documentation. There were no outstanding debts. Are you sure? Absolutely. Eleanor Davis was a very organized woman with her money. She didn't owe anyone anything. Then why did people show up here saying there are debts of $300,000? Dr. Harrison was silent for a moment. Sarah, this smells like a scam. Where are the documents for these supposed debts? They showed me a folder, but they didn't let me examine it properly. Don't sign anything. I'll look into this story first thing tomorrow. If someone is trying to defraud the estate, we'll find out. Sarah hung up, feeling a little more hopeful. Professor William had overheard the conversation. See, I suspected it was a scam, but still you need stronger legal protection. How so? I'll call a lawyer friend in Denver. He's a specialist in mineral rights and has handled similar cases before. The next day, Dr. Harrison called early. Sarah, I got some information. This Dr. Stephen Walsh is not a lawyer registered with the Colorado State Bar, and the documents he showed you are crude forgeries. How did you find out? I made some calls to notaries and banks. None of the supposed debts exist in the official records. Sarah felt relieved but also more worried. If Raymond was using fake documents, how far would he be willing to go? Dr. Harrison, what should I do? First, file a police report about the attempted fraud. Second, hire a specialized lawyer to protect your rights to the land. Third, don't go back there alone. Professor William, who was listening, agreed. That's exactly what I was going to suggest. That morning, they went into town to file the police report. The sheriff, Sheriff Michael, received them attentively. This business of fake debts is more common than you think. There are a lot of scammers out there trying to take advantage of inheritances. And what can I do to protect myself? Besides the police report, I recommend you install some security cameras on the property, and if those men come back there, call immediately. Could they try to take the land by force? It's possible. That's why it's important to have evidence of any intimidation. In the afternoon, Professor William received a call from his lawyer friend in Denver. Dr. Charles Bennett will arrive here tomorrow. He'll analyze the whole situation and suggest the best legal measures. How much does he charge? We talked about that. Since it's a case involving rare minerals, he's agreed to work for a percentage of the future profits. You don't need to pay anything up front. Sarah felt grateful for the help she was receiving. Professor, how can I repay such kindness? Sarah, you don't need to repay anything. Margaret and I are at an age where we help others. That's what gives life meaning. Lily, who was playing with her crystals in the farmyard, approached. Mom, my little stones are telling me everything is going to be okay. How do you mean, sweetie? They shine differently when they're happy. And today, they are very happy. Sarah looked at the crystals. They really did seem to be shining more intensely. And do they know why they're happy? Because they know we'll be together forever, and that we're going to be very happy. That night, while the children slept, Sarah had a long conversation with Professor William and Margaret. I'm scared, she confessed. Raymond doesn't seem like the type who gives up easily. That's why you need to be prepared, said Margaret. Men like him sometimes do desperate things when they see a lot of money at stake. What kind of things? Professor William hesitated before answering. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I did some research on Raymond Parker. He has a history of questionable practices in land deals. What kind of practices? 5 years ago, he tried to take an elderly widow's land using fake documents. The woman only didn't lose everything because her children hired a good lawyer. And was he punished? He managed to escape because of some legal technicalities. But the pattern is the same. He identifies valuable properties, invents fake debts or legal problems, and pressures the owners to sell for ridiculous prices. Sarah felt a chill. What if he tries something similar with me? That's why you need to be one step ahead of him, replied Margaret. The next day, Dr. Charles Bennett arrived at the ranch. He was a man of about 50, with a serious but kind demeanor. Sarah, I've analyzed all the documentation Professor Williams sent me. Your legal situation regarding the land is solid. The probate was done correctly and there are no outstanding debts. What about the crystals? That's where it gets interesting. You have mineral exploration rights on your property, but you'll need specific licenses to commercialize them. Is it complicated to get those licenses? Normally, yes, but in your case, since it's agates for ornamental purposes and mineral water for human consumption, the process is simpler than heavy mining. Professor William asked about the timelines. Dr. Charles, how long does it take to get all the licenses? If there are no challenges, between 6 months and a year. And if there are challenges, it could take years. That's why it's important to ensure no one can question your rights to the property. Dr. Charles explained the legal strategy. First, we'll officially register the discovery of the crystals with the proper authorities. This establishes that you are the official discoverer. Second, we'll apply for all necessary licenses immediately. Third, we'll sue Raymond Parker and his accomplice for attempted fraud. Sue? Yes. It's important to show you won't be intimidated. Also, a lawsuit against him could reveal other victims and strengthen your case. That afternoon, they returned to the land to do a more complete survey of the available crystals. Dr. Charles wanted to officially document everything that had been discovered. Lily guided them to the cave, excited to show her crystal palace to the lawyer. My God, Dr. Charles murmured upon seeing the formation. In 20 years dealing with mineral law, I've never seen anything like it. They spent hours photographing, measuring, and cataloguing the crystals. Dr. Charles used GPS equipment to mark the cave's exact location. Sarah, just this cave could be worth more than $5 million, he estimated. 5 million? At a minimum. If there are other caves, as Professor Williams suspects, the value could reach tens of millions. Ethan, who was listening, asked an important question. What if Raymond finds out about the cave? Dr. Charles turned serious. That's why we're installing security cameras today, and I'll request a court order prohibiting any unauthorized person from entering this property. For the rest of the afternoon, they installed a basic camera system around the cave and at strategic points on the land. The cameras are motion-activated and send alerts directly to my phone, explained Professor William. And if they come at night? The cameras have night vision. We'll record everything. That night, Sarah decided they should sleep on the property. She didn't want to abandon the place just when she most needed to protect it. Mom, can I sleep near the cave? Asked Lily. No, honey. We'll all stay together in the shack. But my little stones are happier when I'm near them. Sarah looked at the crystals Lily carried. They really did seem to glow more intensely when the girl was nearby. All right, but we all stay together. Around 10 at night, Professor Williams' phone rang. It was an alert from the security cameras. There's movement on the property, he announced. Sarah felt her heart race. What do we do? First, let's see who it is. Professor William opened the app showing the camera feeds in real time. On the screen, they could see 3 figures moving among the rocks with flashlights. It's Raymond and his accomplices, Sarah identified. What are they doing? It looks like they're searching for something. Dr. Charles, who had also stayed to sleep on the property, suggested immediate action. I'll call the police. This is trespassing on private property. While they waited for the police to arrive, they watched the intruders through the cameras. Raymond and his men were clearly searching for the crystal cave. How do they know a cave exists? Sarah asked. They probably looked into the local legends about the Blue Cave, replied Professor William. In the footage, They saw when Raymond found the cave entrance. His reaction was pure awe. "Now he knows everything," Sarah murmured. "That's for the best," said Dr. Charles. "Now we have evidence that he knew the property's real value when he tried to buy it for a pittance." The police arrived after 40 minutes. 3 patrol cars approached with sirens off, catching the intruders by surprise. Sarah and the group came out of the shack to witness the arrest. Raymond tried to argue he was just checking the property for a potential deal, but the camera recordings contradicted his story. "You can't arrest me. I have rights to this land," he shouted. Sheriff Michael responded calmly. "Mr. Raymond, you are being arrested for trespassing on private property. Any claims about rights will have to be made through civil court." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, when the police left, taking Raymond and his accomplices, Sarah could finally relax a little. "At least now they won't bother us anymore," she commented. Dr. Charles shook his head. "Sarah, this is only the beginning. Men like Raymond have contacts and resources. He'll try other strategies." "What kind of strategies?" "He could try to challenge the probate in court. He could bribe public officials to create problems with the permits. He could even hire other criminals to intimidate you." Sarah sat on a rock, discouraged. "So we'll never have peace?" Professor William approached. "Sarah, every great fortune comes with great challenges, but you're not alone in this fight." Margaret, who had watched everything from a distance, added, "And remember, you have something Raymond will never have." "What?" "The legal right to the property. No matter how many schemes he tries, the law is on your side." Lily, who had been quiet during all the commotion, approached her mother with her crystals glowing in her hands. "Mom, my little stones are saying the bad man won't be able to take them." "How do they know that, honey?" "Because they chose to stay with us. And when a special stone chooses someone, no one can change that." Sarah smiled for the first time on that tense day. "Your stones are very wise, Lily. It's true. And they also said that more good people will appear to help us." As if fulfilling a prophecy, the next day 2 people appeared who would completely change the course of the situation. The first was Mrs. Dorothy, a 70-year-old lady who introduced herself as a distant cousin of Aunt Eleanor. "Sarah, I heard from the neighbors that you're having problems with that Raymond Parker. You know him?" "Yes, I do, and I came here to warn you about something important." Mrs. Dorothy told a surprising story. Eleanor had confided in her, before dying, that she would leave the land specifically to Sarah because she knew she was strong enough to protect it. Eleanor discovered the value of the crystals years ago. She secretly brought geologists to analyze everything. She knew exactly what she was leaving for you. "But why didn't she tell me this before she died?" "Because she was afraid other people would find out." Raymond Parker had already tried to buy the land from her several times. She distrusted his intentions. And what else did Aunt Eleanor say? That you would face a lot of pressure, but that in the end you would manage to protect what was rightfully yours. The second person who appeared was even more important, Dr. Richard Sullivan, an ethical businessman specializing in the marketing of precious stones and minerals. "I heard through Professor William about your discovery. I would like to propose an honest partnership." "What kind of partnership?" "My company handles all the commercial aspects, licenses, processing, sales, export. You get 70% of the profits, I get 30% to cover costs and work." Dr. Charles analyzed the proposal. "It's a fair split, Sarah. Normally companies like his take 50% or more. And why such a favorable split for me?" Dr. Richard explained. "First, because you discovered something extraordinary that can benefit many people. Second, because I want to establish a long-term partnership based on trust. How does it work in practice? We obtain all the necessary licenses, install careful extraction equipment that doesn't harm the environment, process the crystals for sale, and handle all the marketing." Professor William asked about the timelines. "Dr. Richard, how long until we start generating profits?" "With the licenses we are already applying for, between 4 to 6 months for the first sales. After that, it can generate a very significant monthly income." Sarah wanted to be sure of the company's integrity. "Dr. Richard, Can I visit other operations you manage? Of course. In fact, I'll suggest you visit 3 different companies before deciding. I want you to be sure you're making the right choice. During the visit to Dr. Richard's other operations, Sarah was impressed by the transparency and environmental care he demonstrated. Our principle is simple, he explained. Extract the maximum value with the minimum environmental and social impact. And if someone tries to interfere with the business? Raymond Parker, for example. We have specialized lawyers and private security when necessary. We've dealt with situations like this before. Sarah returned from the tour determined to accept the partnership. Dr. Richard, I think we can work together, but I have one condition. What is it? I want a portion of the profits to be allocated to improvements for the local community, school, health clinic, infrastructure. Dr. Richard smiled. Sarah, that's not a condition, it's a moral obligation. It was already planned for in our proposal. 2 days later, as they were signing the contracts, Raymond appeared again. This time he wasn't alone. He brought a real lawyer and documents that looked official. Sarah, I've come to inform you that I am legally contesting the validity of your inventory, he announced. The new lawyer, Dr. Gerald Foster, introduced himself. Mrs. Mitchell, my client has evidence of irregularities in the late Eleanor Davis's estate inventory process. Dr. Charles immediately intervened. What kind of evidence? Later wills that were not considered, special clauses that invalidate the inheritance, unresolved tax issues. May I examine these documents? Dr. Gerald hesitated. They are documents under expert review. I cannot disclose them at this time. Mrs. Dorothy, who was present, was outraged. That's an outright lie. Eleanor showed me the original will several times. There is no later document. And who are you to give an opinion? Raymond questioned. I am Eleanor's cousin and a witness to the drafting of the original will. Dr. Charles saw an opportunity. Mrs. Dorothy, would you be willing to testify officially about this? Of course I would. And I can prove these men are lying. Raymond began to get nervous. Look, it doesn't have to be like this. We can settle everything amicably. How? Sarah asked. Accept our original purchase offer. $100,000 for the land, and we each go our separate ways. Dr. Richard, who had watched the entire clash, finally spoke. Mr. Raymond, the estimated value of just the crystals already catalogued on this land is over $5 million. Your proposal is clearly inadequate. And who are you? Dr. Richard Sullivan, Sarah's business partner, and I can assure you she doesn't need to sell anything for a pittance. Raymond realized the situation had completely changed. Sarah now had a specialized lawyer, a trustworthy business partner, and witnesses to the legitimacy of the inheritance. Very well. We'll see each other in court, he said before leaving. After Raymond's departure, Dr. Charles reassured Sarah. He can contest it in court, but he has no real evidence. The challenges will be rejected. How long could this take? At most 6 months, and during that time, you can continue to work the land normally, Dr. Richard added. In fact, we can already begin installing the equipment. The first permits were approved yesterday. Sarah could hardly believe the news. They've already been approved. The City Hall and the State Environmental Agency gave favorable opinions. We're just waiting for the federal permit, which should come in a few weeks. Lily, who was playing with her crystals, came running over. Mum, my little stones are very happy today. Why, sweetie? Because they know that soon many people will be able to have special little stones too. Sarah hugged her daughter. Somehow, Lily always seemed to understand what was happening better than the adults. It's true, my love. Soon we'll be able to help many people. In the following weeks, while awaiting the final legal approvals, Sarah decided to get to know the local community better. She wanted to understand the most urgent needs of the region. She spoke with teachers from the public school, nurses from the health clinic, local merchants and long-time residents. The biggest need here is jobs, explained Mr. John, owner of the town's only market. The young people leave because there are no opportunities. And second, infrastructure. The access road is a terror, the internet signal is weak, and some neighborhoods lack treated water. Sarah carefully noted everything. She wanted the profits from the crystal extraction to truly improve people's lives. Mrs. Helen, the librarian, had an interesting idea. Sarah, have you thought about creating an educational center about geology? With the crystals from your land, it would be possible to teach children and adults about mineral formation, environmental preservation. That's an excellent idea. It could attract educational tourism too. Exactly. And it would generate local jobs, guides, instructors, craft vendors. Professor William, when he heard the idea, got excited. Sarah, I can help with the technical part of the educational center. It would be a wonderful project. Dr. Richard also supported the initiative. From a commercial standpoint, an educational center would add great value to the brand. It would show that the extraction is done responsibly and educationally. While the plans developed, Raymond continued trying to create problems. He spread rumors in town that Sarah was going to destroy the local environment, that crystal extraction would pollute the water, that outside companies would harm the residents. The bad faith of that man is astonishing, commented Margaret. He himself wanted to exploit the land, but now he pretends to care about the environment. Sarah decided to combat the rumors head-on. She organized a public meeting to explain exactly how the operation would work. Everyone, I want to be very transparent with you, she began, speaking to an audience of about 50 residents. The crystal extraction will be done in an artisanal way. No explosives, no chemicals, no water pollution. Furthermore, 70% of the profits stay here in the community, through direct jobs, infrastructure investments, and social projects. Mr. William, from the neighboring farm, asked an important question. And if, after a few years, the company decides to leave, we're left with nothing, Dr. Richard answered. That's why we created long-term contracts with legal guarantees. The company can only halt activities if there's mutual agreement, or if the crystals truly run out. A teacher from the municipal school raised her hand. Sarah, is it true there will be an educational center? Yes. We want to turn part of the land into a learning space about geology, environment, and sustainability. The community's reaction was very positive. Raymond had bet he could turn people against Sarah, but it backfired. At the end of the meeting, the residents created a petition in support of Sarah's project. Now he'll see he can't manipulate public opinion, commented Mrs. Helen. A week after the meeting, Sarah received an unexpected visit. It was Dr. Harrison, the lawyer who had handled the estate. Sarah, I need to tell you some things about your Aunt Eleanor that you don't know. What things? Eleanor came to see me several times in her last years. She knew Raymond was interested in the land and was worried about it. Worried how? She discovered that Raymond had tried to steal land from other people using illegal methods. That's why she created several legal protections you can't even imagine. Dr. Harrison showed a series of documents. Eleanor registered the discovery of the crystals with a notary 2 years ago. She hired geologists to produce official reports. She even recorded a video interview explaining her intentions. A video interview? Yes. She wanted to make it clear she was leaving the land specifically to you because she trusted your character. Dr. Charles examined the documents. With this evidence, any challenge from Raymond becomes impossible. Eleanor created a perfect legal shield. And why didn't you show me this before? Because Eleanor asked to only reveal it if there were attempts at fraudulent challenges. She wanted you to discover the land's value on your own merit, not from her information. Sarah was moved. Aunt Eleanor had really planned everything down to the smallest detail. Can I see the video interview? Of course, they watched the video in Dr. Harrison's office. It was moving to see Aunt Eleanor explaining her intentions with clarity and affection. Sarah has always been a brave and honest girl. She faced family prejudice, raised 2 children alone, worked hard even in difficult conditions. If anyone deserves a chance at prosperity, it's her. This land holds treasures that can change her life and the children's, but only if she is strong enough to protect them. I trust she will succeed. Lily, who was also watching, was moved. Auntie really did care for us. Ethan, in turn, made a mature observation. Now I understand why that wicked man can't take our land. Auntie protected us even after she died. That same week, Dr. Richard received the last necessary federal permit. Sarah, now we can officially begin operations, he announced excitedly. When do we start? Next Monday. We'll bring a team of 5 specialists in artisanal extraction. Professor William asked about the schedule. Doctor, Richard, when will the first shipment of crystals be ready? If all goes well, in 6 weeks we'll have the first batches ready for sale. Sarah could hardly believe she would finally see concrete results from all that struggle. And how much could the first shipment bring in? We estimate between $80,000 to $120,000 net for you. Lily clapped her hands. Mommy is going to be rich. Not just Mommy, sweetheart. Our whole community will benefit. The Sunday before operations began, Sarah organized a small project blessing ceremony. She invited the local priest, the nearby neighbors, and all the people who had helped her. During the ceremony, Lily did something unexpected. She took the most beautiful blue crystal from her collection and placed it in a small cavity in the wall of the main cavern. Why did you do that, honey? It's a gift for the other little stones, so they know we'll always be friends, even when some go to faraway places. The priest was touched by the gesture. This child has a wisdom we adults sometimes lose. She understands that prosperity only has meaning when it's shared with love. On Monday, Dr. Richard's team arrived promptly. They were 5 professionals experienced in the artisanal extraction of minerals. Sarah was impressed by the delicacy of their work. They used small, precise tools, removing the crystals without damaging the surrounding rock formations. The goal is to extract sustainably, explained the team leader. We want the cavern to keep producing crystals for many years. During the first weeks, Sarah closely followed the entire process. She wanted to understand every stage of the work. Lily also loved watching the extraction. She had developed an impressive ability to identify which crystals were of better quality. This one is special, she would say, pointing to crystals that after analysis indeed proved superior. How do you know? One of the technicians would ask. They shine differently. The happier ones shine brighter. The technician, initially skeptical, began paying attention to Lily's indications. He discovered she was right in over 90% of cases. This girl has a natural gift for mineralogy, he commented to Sarah. Do you think she could learn to work with this in the future? Of course. With the talent she shows, she could become an exceptional gemologist. Sarah smiled, thinking about the future. Lily would have all the opportunities she herself never had. Ethan was also getting interested in the project, but in a different way. He asked questions about the commercial and financial side. Mom, how much does it cost to extract each crystal? How much do they sell for? How do we know if they're paying a fair price? Dr. Richard was impressed by the boy's business acumen. Ethan, you have a knack for administration. How about starting to learn about business management? Can I really? Of course. I'll give you some basic books on entrepreneurship. Sarah Mitchell felt proud seeing her children take an interest in constructive things. They were growing up in an environment of opportunities she had never imagined possible. After 6 weeks of work, the first shipment of crystals was ready for sale. Dr. Richard organized a small auction for specialized collectors. The result exceeded all expectations. Sarah, the net profit from the first shipment was $145,000, he announced. Sarah almost fainted. 145,000? And this is just the beginning. The crystals from here are so special they've already created international demand. Collectors from Europe and Japan are interested. That night, Sarah gathered the children for an important talk. Kids, our life has completely changed. Now we have the resources to fulfill many dreams. What kind of dreams? Asked Lily. Well, we can have a better house. You can study at the best schools. We can travel to see new places. Ethan asked a question that surprised Sarah. And we're going to help the people here too, right, Mom? Of course, son. Why do you ask that? Because every time we talk about the plans, you always talk about helping the community. I like that. Lily agreed. Me too. I want everyone to have special little stones to be happy. Sarah hugged both children. You two are going to grow up to be wonderful people. I'm sure of that. In the following months, Sarah gradually implemented her community development plans. The first project was the renovation of the municipal school. She funded the construction of a science lab and a new library. Children deserve access to the best possible education, she explained during the inauguration. The second project was improving the access road to the town. The new asphalt made transportation easier and attracted new investors to the region. The The third project was installing a high-speed internet system. In today's world, internet access is as important as water and electricity, Sarah said during the activation ceremony. Each project created direct and indirect jobs, improved local quality of life, and strengthened the region's economy. Raymond Parker tried a few more times to legally challenge the projects, but without success. Sarah's lawyers always managed to demonstrate the legality and legitimacy of all actions. Dr. Charles eventually even managed to sue Raymond for defamation and attempted fraud. The businessman was ordered to pay compensation and was prohibited from approaching Sarah's land. "Now he finally understands he can't intimidate honest people," commented Dr. Charles after the final ruling. 1 year after the extraction began, Sarah inaugurated the Geology Educational Center she had planned. The center offered courses for local students, educational tourism programs, and workshops for adults interested in mineralogy. Professor William became the technical director of the center. "Sarah, this project is being visited by schools from all over the state. We're raising a generation of young people interested in natural sciences." Lily, now 7 years old, became a sort of mascot for the center. She loved showing visitors how to identify special crystals. "The little stones like it when people look at them with care," she explained to groups of enchanted students. Ethan, 9 years old, already showed a talent for management. He helped organize the visits and kept spreadsheets to track the educational materials. "When I grow up, I want to run companies that help people," he would say. Sarah watched her children's growth with pride and satisfaction. They were developing in an environment rich in opportunities and positive values. Dr. Richard eventually proposed an expansion of operations. "Sarah, we've discovered there are at least 5 other crystal caves on your land. We could triple production. Won't it harm the environment?" "On the contrary, with more resources we can invest even more in sustainability and community projects." Sarah accepted the expansion, but imposed strict conditions for environmental preservation and social benefit. "All growth must come with responsibility," she established. The expanded operation generated over 50 direct jobs in the region. Young people who previously had to migrate to big cities now found professional opportunities at home. Margaret and Professor William became informal advisors to Sarah for all community projects. "You have a natural talent for leading social development," Margaret observed. "Have you ever thought about taking a public administration course?" "Me? College?" "Of course, now you have the resources to study whatever you want." Sarah enrolled in a distance learning public management course. She wanted to better qualify herself to manage regional development projects. During her studies, she discovered intellectual abilities she had never explored due to lack of opportunity. "Professor William, I'm loving studying. Why didn't I do this before?" "Because before you were surviving, now you're living. It's a huge difference." Lily and Ethan also benefited from the new educational possibilities. Sarah enrolled them in a quality private school in the nearest town. "But I want to keep coming here to the land," Lily insisted. "Of course, sweetie. This will always be our true home." "And can I keep collecting special little stones?" "Whenever you want. They are part of our story." 2 years after the inheritance, Sarah looked back and could hardly believe the transformation. She had gone from an unemployed single mother, living in a rented apartment with no prospects, to a respected businesswoman, college student, and community leader. But the biggest change wasn't material. It was emotional. "Kids, do you know what the most important thing we gained from all this was?" "Money," guessed Ethan. "A beautiful house," suggested Lily. "No, it was self-esteem. We discovered we are capable of things we never imagined." Lily reflected on the answer. "It's true, Mum. Before we were always afraid. Now we are always hopeful." Ethan added, "And before we only received help. Now we help others too." Sarah hugged both children, watching the sun set over the rock formations that had changed their lives. The blue agates continued to shine in the main cave, like small beacons of hope. Lily was right when she said the stones chose their families. Aunt Eleanor was also right when she bet that Sarah would have the strength to protect and value the inheritance she received. 3 years later, during a graduation ceremony for the first mineralogy technicians trained by the Educational Center, Sarah gave a speech that summarized her entire journey. "When I first arrived here, I thought I had received a useless piece of land full of stones, but I discovered I had received much more than precious stones. I had received an opportunity to transform not only my life, but the life of an entire community. The stones were just the beginning. The real treasure was discovering that we all have the potential to overcome difficulties, achieve dreams, and make a difference in other people's lives. Today, when my daughter Lily says the stones choose their families, I understand what she means. We were chosen to be guardians of something special. And our responsibility is to use that privilege to create opportunities, hope, and shared prosperity. Aunt Eleanor left me a plot of land full of stones as a gift. But the true gift was the chance to discover who I really am and what I'm capable of." The audience gave a standing ovation. In the front row, Lily held her favorite blue crystals, which seemed to shine more brightly during her mother's speech. Ethan, now 12 and already showing natural leadership, whispered to his sister, "Lily's stones are applauding too." "Of course they are," Lily replied. "They love it when Mommy talks about courage and hope." Sarah stepped off the stage and hugged her children. In the background, through the auditorium windows, you could see the rocky formations on the land where it all began. Professor William approached the group. "Sarah, I want to ask you a question. Do you regret anything about this journey?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Just one thing." "What?" "Not having known Aunt Eleanor's true personality sooner. She was a wise and generous woman I always misjudged. But that taught you something important too." "What?" "That sometimes the greatest gifts come packaged in ways we don't immediately recognize." Lily tugged on her mother's clothes. "Mom, my little stones want to know when we're going to visit the cave again." "How about tomorrow, sweetie?" "They'll like that. They miss home." Sarah smiled. After all these years, Lily still maintained her special connection with the crystals. It was as if she understood something about them that eluded the adults. That night, the family returned to the land to sleep. Sarah had built a comfortable house near the original shack site, but preserved the view of the rocky formations. While the children slept, she went out to walk among the stones under the moonlight. The main cave was now protected by glass structures that allowed viewing, but prevented damage. At night, the blue crystals created a natural light show that attracted visitors from all over the country. But for Sarah, the place remained simply her home, the place where she had discovered who she really was. Sitting on the same stone she used to sit on in the early days, she reflected on the entire journey. From a desperate single mother to a prosperous businesswoman, from unemployed to college student, from aid recipient to community leader. Each stage had required courage, determination, and a lot of help from good people like Professor William, Margaret, Dr. Charles, and Dr. Richard. But deep down, she knew the strength to overcome all obstacles had come from within herself. Aunt Eleanor was right. She always had the necessary courage, she just needed an opportunity to show it. The sound of footsteps made her turn. It was Lily, carrying her favorite crystals. "Why aren't you sleeping, sweetie?" "I woke up and saw you out here. I came to keep you company." Lily sat next to her mother and placed the crystals in her lap. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Were you ever afraid we'd lose everything again?" Sarah looked at her daughter in surprise. At 8 years old, Lily continued to ask very mature questions. "Yes, I was, sweetie. Especially at the beginning, when those mean men tried to take our land." "And are you still afraid now?" "Not anymore. Do you know why?" "Why?" "Because I learned that true wealth isn't the stones or the money. It's our family, our unity, our ability to overcome problems together." Lily smiled. "The little stones told me the same thing." "They did. They said their value isn't in their shine or beauty. It's in the joy they bring to the people who find them." Sarah hugged her daughter. Even without understanding exactly how, Lily always managed to grasp the true essence of things. "Lily, when you grow up, I want you to remember one thing." "What?" "That you have a special gift for finding what is truly valuable in life. Use that gift to help other people." Like you did? Yes, like I tried to do. But you will do much better than I did. Lily held the crystals tenderly. Mom, want to know a secret the little stones told me? I do. They said our story isn't over yet. That very beautiful things are still going to happen. What kind of things? I don't really know, but they are very excited about the future. Sarah smiled. If Lily's stones were optimistic, she could be too. Then let's wait and see, okay, sweetie? Let's. But we don't need to rush. Good things come at the right time. Mother and daughter sat a while longer among the stones, watching the stars and listening to the night sounds of nature. When they finally returned home, Sarah felt grateful for everything she had lived through. The difficulties, the fears, the victories, the accomplishments, everything had contributed to transforming her into the person she was today, a strong, generous, determined woman, and above all, a happy one. In the bedroom, as Lily arranged her crystals on the nightstand, she made one last comment. Mom, I think Aunt Eleanor is proud of us. Why do you think that? Because today, the little stones shone a different color, a color I had never seen before. It was the color of complete happiness. Sarah tucked her daughter into bed and gave her a good-night kiss. Sleep well, my love. Good night, Mom. Good night, special little stones. The crystals seemed to pulse softly one last time before Lily fell asleep. Sarah turned off the light and went to her room, carrying in her heart the certainty that she had found much more than precious stones on that seemingly useless land. She had found herself. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this moving story? Do you think Sarah made the right decisions in protecting her inheritance and turning the discovery into a benefit for the whole community? And what do you think about little Lily's special wisdom with the crystals? Leave your opinion in the comments. If you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other amazing stories. Thanks.